My name is Micah. I'm one of your volunteers tonight here. We're happy to have a full house. It's amazing. He must be a very popular speaker, Robert Arn. Who has never been here before? Show of hands. Ah, a few. It gets better and better. I'm happy to report that we're on our way to our 55,000th visitor. We're pretty close. So that is since 1999, about 13 years, 12 years. Little Thompson Observatory, of course, is an all-volunteer organization doing educational astronomy. Our target audience is K through 12, but we take students of every age, right? Really small to really old. If you feel like you like what we're doing, we have a donation box behind the gentleman in the back there, next to the door. You leave a little donation here. If you give us a little bigger donation, we have T-shirts, we have mugs, we got hats, baseball caps, all that stuff. And we have a
three Galileo scopes left.
Oh,
great
yeah.
Christmas tree.
Three left. Okay. Would you like to model this? Okay. Anyway, we're open by appointment any night of the year. So you can go to our website, starkids.org, make an appointment for your family, for a group of friends, for yourself, and we'll put a volunteer in here to help you with the telescope. And it's your evening, nobody else will be here. We do that in daytime as well, if you want to look at the sun. We have solar telescope ability, so we can look at prominences, sunspots, what have you. Every third Friday, like tonight, we have our public star night. Tonight we're happy to have Robert Arn, one of our new volunteers, a local northern Coloradoan, who is going to talk about astrophotography, what he's really, really good at. Next month, the 16th of November, we have a topic that may interest a lot of you, and that is time travel. Is it a hoax? Or is it real? How can we do it? Can we do it?
Will you be
Where are all
doing a
the
live demonstration?
Where are all the science fiction guys? Yeah, John will come back from the future to talk about it.
With stock quotes.
Yes. So that'll be the 16th of October or November. And then the 15th of December, our star night, will be what we call the Star of Wonder, the Star of Bethlehem. What was it? Was it a star? Was it a planet? Which planet? Was it a couple planets? So we'll go through some biblical references, some scientific references, some historical references, eliminate some possibilities, and come up with what it may have been. And then run some software to show a simulation as to what happened and why it was what it was. So you're welcome to join us in those third Fridays of each night, or of each month. And with that, I'll turn it over to Robert. He has a presentation since the clouds are fairly thick and the football game is on. I told him he can go for about an hour. So if you guys want him to go longer, he says he can talk for hours. One good thing about him, yesterday he told us he just defended his master's thesis in math, and he passed, so with that.
Well, thank you. So, as Micah said, tonight I'm going to be talking about astrophotography, bringing the night sky down to Earth. So, what does this actually mean? Well, when we see all of these amazing images coming out of Hubble and all the other major observatories around the world, we see these amazing pictures, but they sort of are at a disconnect from us. They're objects that are entirely in space, but the night sky is all around us. And with the type of photography that I specialize in, which I call nightscape photography, I'm going to show the night sky with the Earth. And the great thing about this is we can do it very easily. So over the course of the night, I will be starting with a very basic equipment setup. So I'll start off with nothing more than a camera and a still tripod, and I'll show you what different types of images you can take with just a basic off-the-shelf, either point-and-shoot or digital SLR camera. And then as we go on, we'll add one more piece of technology, one more piece of equipment. And by the end, we will wind up with a not too complicated looking setup like this. And we'll show you what you can do with nothing more than a camera and a way to track with the night sky and a way to take the images. So, before getting too far into this, I want to tell you a little bit of the story of how I got started in astronomy and astrophotography. About when I was doing my undergrad, I was a freshman in college. I went on an immersion trip with the department of our math chair, and he led an astrophotography field trip to the desert of New Mexico. And at my undergrad university, we had all this amazing equipment. We had tons of telescopes, cameras, field flatteners, complicated computer setups. And without knowing anything about the night sky or anything about photography or anything about astrophotography, I started out with a setup like this. We have a 8-inch high focal length telescope, a guide scope, a dedicated CCD camera, laptop connections, a wedge-mounted equatorial mount, and a 20-year-old mount that guided it. And for the first year, I spent a lot of time with this setup, and I thought, well, this has to be a lot easier to take a picture of the night sky. I mean, I spent a good year trying to get one solid picture with no success. So, at the same university, I went and I tried something else. I tried our 20-inch telescope, which had an auto guider, 3 telescopes mounted on the side, a dome that didn't work right, and I spent another year and a half trying to get the picture out of this thing, with, again, no success. So, after all that, I said, how can we go easier? And the way is to do what I call now nightscape imaging. Do a very wide field, very easy setup, and to image the night sky along with the Earth, or elements of the Earth. So taking pictures of trees with the Milky Way in the background, or taking pictures of buildings or people, and started to get into nightscape photography. So, after a while, this is my setup for how I start taking all the images that you'll see for the remainder of the night. I start off by planning shots. I look for what landscapes I should have. I confer with topographical maps, especially here in Colorado. Seeing where the mountains are, seeing positions of mountains and other vertical structures. I do a Google Earth search. I look for the surrounding landscape. I look for trees. I look for mountains. I look for buildings that might be in the way. I go through all these steps. I search for dark skies with the dark sky finder. I go and I look for different weather patterns. I look for the position of the moon in order to provide lighting, which I'll get about a little bit later. And then I actually go out and find a place to shoot. So, what do I take with me when I go out shooting? Well, I take a basic camera, I take a wide-angle lens, and I take a still tripod. And for the first part of this, that's all we'll be using for these shots. So, if at any point during this presentation, if you have particular questions on how was a particular shot graded, please just feel free to ask, interrupt, please. So, a camera and a still tripod, what can you do with nothing more than this?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Can you go back to all the different websites on there?
Yes.
Okay, that's now, correct? What's now available. Were those available when you were first doing this?
Yeah, this was only about, I started getting into this about 5 years ago, so all these, maybe Google Earth wasn't around then, but Google Images was, and all the rest of them were available, so it's very easy to find, where mountains are, topographical maps. If you go to popular locations and search Google for Horseshoe Park or Estes Park, and just go to Google Images, there's tons of images you can see, and if you've been there, you know an idea of where those are, and the obstacles that would be in your way from shooting at the different locations.
the ExxonMobil site provide?
Because the last step is actually going there and scouting out the location, and typically, in order to get the dark skies, you have to drive a lot. So, getting started with a camera and still tripod. This is a basic 30-second shot with nothing more than a camera and a still tripod. So most digital cameras today have, that you can buy off the shelf, have a manual mode. And in the manual mode, it'll allow you to select how long of a shot you want. So when we take daytime images with our cameras, we're looking at exposures of 1/2000th of a second, 1/500th of a second. For nighttime exposures, in order to collect enough light to see stars, to see features within the landscape, you need a lot longer of exposures. So, but with the current technology, even a simple 30-second shot can really help bring out these stars. And with here, you can see a lot of popular constellations, even within this simple 30-second shot. For example, the constellation of Leo, right there. And if we don't want to spend time trying to figure out what all these are, annotated version. So, we can easily make out the Virgo crater, the constellation of Cancer, Ursa Major. Big Dipper is partly on the screen, but mostly continues out in this area. So, and in this particular image, this was taken in Allerton Park in central Illinois, and this is a statue of the god Apollo, also known as the god of the sun. So I felt this was appropriate in doing the god of the sun with all these other suns in the image that we don't normally think of. So, other things we can do. This is again a very simple 30-second shot, only this time, if you take a minute to look, you'll notice that there are stars in here, even though it looks like daytime. So, we can use the moon to our advantage here. The moon is a very powerful source of light pollution that, when we really want to do astronomy, we want the moon to be down. But for nightscape photography, the moon can be wonderful. It can illuminate the foreground. It can, it can light up mountains miles away. It can light up features all around here. This image was taken at 1 in the morning, and when the moon was setting right, or the moon was behind the camera. And the fun thing about nightscape imaging is you can take different shots. Or you can take the same shot at different times of the year and get the same thing. For example, same shot during the winter. Also at midnight, 1 in the morning.
That is your impersonation of Apollo?
Yeah. So what happens when the moon is not full? Oh, we still have a lot of light, even with a thin crescent moon out. A 15-20% illuminated moon still provides more than enough light to illuminate the clouds, illuminate buildings. And up in here, we can even, with a simple 20-second exposure, we can make out the constellation of Orion. We have Orion's belt and Orion's sword up in there. Yes?
When you go out to make these shots, do you often take many shots at the same time with different length exposures just to see what looks best?
When I started out, I used to, yes. So, unfortunately, there is no cookbook guide to this because there are so many factors that can contribute to how much light you have to work with. And one of the things on a still tripod that you have to worry about is taking a short enough exposure so the stars do not trail, so you don't see big streaks of stars. So, it is a combination of how long do you choose to expose your image versus, how much your ISO setting, how much noise you want in the image. And it's just basically a compromise there. Now when I go out to take shots, typically I do well, we'll see a lot more. I do a few HDR techniques and mosaic shots, and after doing this for a few years, you build up enough intuition to pretty much be able to judge, the conditions around you. So there's this big concern about light pollution, and and a good example is if you go outside, right out these doors. We have the huge football stadium lights providing a lot of light pollution. We have the town providing light pollution. We have all the cities along the Front Range providing light pollution. But you can still do astrophotography inside of the city. So this particular image was taken from the balcony of one of the dorms in the University of Washington in Seattle. So this was a shot taken about 4 o'clock in the morning, before the sun came up. And with it, we can make out a lot of things. We have the moon, and we see a little bit of Earthshine on the moon. We have the Pleiades open cluster. We have the constellation of Taurus the Bull. We have the planet Venus. And again, this is a simple 20-second shot on a still tripod. We can do other fun things, What if we don't have the moon to work with and we want to illuminate the foreground? Well, there are ways around that. For this particular image, I went out to, this is again, Allerton Park in central Illinois. I used to live there, or around the area. And I brought with me these huge lights. I brought floodlights, I brought spotlights, I brought headlights, I brought, 2 battery packs, and I set them out in the middle of the field, and I illuminated everything. I illuminated the foreground, I illuminated all of this, I illuminated the trees. And by doing that, we're able to get color in the middle of the night when there's no moon, no sources of light pollution around. Able to bring detail out the leaf while still getting a lot of the stars in the background sky with no horrible sources of light pollution in the image. We see the Big Dipper.
Is that illumination for a much shorter time frame than the overall exposure was?
Yes, so for this particular shot, since I had so much lighting power out there, I basically took a 20-second or 20 or 30-second shot to get everything. And then I basically did one big flash that lasted for about a second to a second and a half, which provided all the illumination that I needed for the trees and the foreground and everything like that. So this particular technique is called painting with light. So you can, if you don't have the huge lighting sources, you can, instead you only have one point source of light, you can wave the light around the foreground scene to which will be captured by your camera. Yes?
Are those statues or are those people?
That's actually a person. So this was basically I had a person stand there with a sword for some reason, and it had to do something with the park. But yeah, so after the 1.5 second big flash, I had the person stand there, and I shot a point source of light from this angle at him, and then quickly moved over here, and I did a light source of light from right there, and then for the remaining 20 seconds in the image, he stood in the middle. Yep. So. We can also do fun shots. So, this was a shot taken at the University of Nebraska. It was 5, 6 o'clock at night. Sun was still out, middle of summer. I was, rummaging around a construction zone, and in order to get the angle on this, I had my camera down here like this, and just hopping along, trying to get the moon in the right position. And, well, a few campus security cars later, they allowed me to continue. And if you get timing just right, so I guess it's been 3 years now. 3 summers ago, we had this amazing planetary alignment of Venus, Mars, and either Jupiter or Saturn. And I was with a couple people down at the lake in Nebraska, and they decided to, whoever was hosting this decided that the planetary alignment was something to celebrate, so they set off fireworks on the 4th of July for this. And, just, a quick, I believe this was a 6-second exposure. They had a person stand in the foreground, stand perfectly still, and was able to capture all the detail that you see. Other things, yes?
Why does some of the pictures curve like that?
So for this particular image, I used a fisheye lens. So the fisheye does a spherical or cylindrical distortion around it. So other things we can capture with nothing more than a still tripod and a camera are satellites orbiting the Earth. So we see up here, this big streak that is reflected in the water is actually what's known as an iridium flare. We have satellites orbiting the Earth that control our communications, control GPSs, and a name given to about 110, I think, of these satellites are known as the iridium satellites. And these satellites have solar panels on them in order to stay charged up. And as they go around the Earth, these satellites will rotate in order to reposition their solar panels so they're collecting light from the sun. During this rotation, we can sometimes see light reflecting off the sun, light coming from the sun, reflecting off these solar panels and bouncing back down to us here on Earth in what's called an iridium flare. And what's really cool is these things are highly predictable. There's a website out there, heavensabove.org, I believe, that will tell you from your location when you can go out and see these iridium flares in the night sky. And typically a flare... Yeah, iPhone apps, Android apps, any type of technology you want probably has it on there. So, and these events last for about between about 15 and 45 seconds. So, very noticeable. And during its peak, at the middle, a lot of them can get brighter than brighter than the planet Venus, about brighter than about a quarter moon. Another very quick shot. This was also taken when the moon was out, or moon was starting to set, a little bit north of Fort Collins here. I was lucky enough to capture a meteor, a sporadic meteor in the image. More things of what we can do. We can get earth shine. If you notice the moon up here, we have a very thin crescent shape. The thin crescent shape is what you can see. That's the part that's illuminated in the night sky. But as soon as we take an image of it, if the crescent is small enough, if enough of the moon is not being illuminated, we can get earth shine, which is basically light from the sun bouncing off the earth and striking the moon. The part of the moon that is not directly being illuminated by the sun. So we can start to see a lot of the craters in Mara in the dark part of the moon here. We also have the planet Venus down there.
Question?
Yes?
Is the reflection from the Earth off the water or off the ice? Or
No.
No?
No, this is just, so this is taken a little, either right before or right after the sunset. So we still have enough light coming from the sun, bouncing through our atmosphere, that's just bouncing on the Earth itself. So that's reflecting back up. In the same way that when sunlight strikes the moon, we can see we can see detail on the moon the same way. It illuminates our sky, basically. We can get cool things like lunar halos, when there's a very thin layer of ice crystals in our upper atmosphere, if we have a source of light that is bright enough, such as a nearly full moon, we get a 22-degree radius halo around the moon, called a lunar halo. So this thing is huge in the night sky, and typically you see them in or surrounding winter months. So yes.
Do you remember what your exposure time was on that?
20 seconds. And this was with a fisheye lens as well, so a 10mm fisheye. So I found a regular shot, with a 20mm lens. This thing is so large in the night sky that you can't get it all in one shot. And even with a simple 20-second shot, we have the constellation of Orion peeking through down here. We have other constellations around. I can't really see from this angle. Then, for a Halloween theme, middle of the woods at night, monochromatic image. So, but we still see a simple 20-second image. Used a headlight or a flashlight to illuminate some of the path right in front of me and a little bit of the trees. I was facing a large town, so you see a lot of, in between these trees, you see, the night sky being illuminated by light pollution, but up and through here, lots and lots of stars, and even the planet Jupiter peeking through. Then, if you get really, really lucky, and you use, what was it, 110,000 or 65,000 acres of fire burning to create smoke over the city of Fort Collins, you can even image the sun without any filters. So this was the sun right over Horsetooth Dam up in Fort Collins, and I was just on the side of the road taking pictures. Wasn't really looking into my camera. I was watching out for traffic, and in one of these shots, a couple of birds decided to fly right by. That's the button. Okay, so we've done all this stuff with nothing more than a camera and a still tripod. So now I'm going to add one piece of technology to the equipment list called a shutter control cable or an intervalometer. These are really handy devices for any type of long exposure photography or any type of very sensitive photography. Basically what they allow you to do is they replace the shutter button on your camera, and they allow you to program in what types of shots you want. You can tell it, I want you to take 10 shots that are 30 seconds long each with a spacing of 6 seconds in between each shot. And then you press the button, leave it, come back 10 minutes later, and you'll have all your shots ready for you. The other advantage of these devices is it allows you to take longer exposures than what your natural camera settings will allow. So as I said before, most off-the-shelf cameras have a limit of either 15 or 30-second exposures. By using an intervalometer or shutter control cable, you can easily take a 99-hour exposure. So, very impractical, but someone may have a use for it. It's also good for time-lapse photography. So, yes?
How much were those cost?
The official ones by Canon and Nikon are about $180. However, there are many third-party manufacturers that sell them for anywhere between $40 and $60. So what can you do with this? There we go. You can start taking star trail images. So this particular image was taken in eastern Nevada or western Nevada, wherever Great Basin National Park is. And basically zero light pollution, almost zero light pollution. The set of towns in the area stretch over 200 miles and have a total combined population of about 800 people. So But with here, we can easily make out, we can see the effects of the rotation of the Earth. So again, still tripod, this is what the night sky looks like when a camera just exposes for, about 2.5 hours. And we can see right in the center is the North Celestial Pole. And the brightest dot right around it is the North Star, Polaris. Another example of star trail images. This time we do see the effects of light pollution from neighboring towns. And so we don't even have to be in a light pollution free place. This was taken from the middle of the campus of the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. Lincoln, maybe? Yeah, I think it's in Lincoln. So population of the town is about 100,000. We see a few campus buildings around here, but we see the same Star Trail things. This particular image was taken inside of another piece of artwork, which I have dubbed giant parentheses. Basically, there are these two huge oval-shaped pieces of metal that stick up about 10 foot into the air, and there's enough space to walk in between them. So this was taken from inside of that.
How long a shot would that be? Would that be time?
This was time-lapse, so I took about 45 minutes of, the total exposure time was 45 minutes, taken with 20-second intervals. So I took about 200 images and just combined them, combined the star trails on them. So a very simple shot from early morning. So we have the planet Venus down here and Jupiter up here. This was taken with a 200mm camera lens, and with nothing more than a camera lens, we're able to get some of the moons of Jupiter.
What's exposure and f-stop for that?
F-stop on this was f4.5. Exposure time was 8 seconds with an ISO of 200.
And how do you remember all that?
I have no idea. I have a horrible memory. When I'm doing research, I have stacks of books and multiple computers with websites. I can't remember anything, but every single one of my pictures, I know where it was taken, when it was taken, and how I shot it.
When you take a picture like that, do you just assume it will be okay and then review it when you get home, or do you actually review anything on the viewer of your camera right while you're there?
I always review on the back of my camera while I'm there. And typically what I'll do for shots like this is I'll wind up spending an hour, maybe half hour to an hour shooting the same target, and trying to just doing minor changes to my settings, trying different focal lengths on my lenses, trying different exposure times. And by doing this over the period of 30, 45 minutes, basically what I see is different effects in background having and different effects in the contrast, because as I said, this was taken right before the sun came up, about maybe an hour before sunrise, and the amount that the sky changes within that hour before sunrise completely changes these images. I mean, within this particular image here, we not only see Venus and Jupiter, but we see a lot of individual, some of the brighter stars in the night sky all around. We also see a very color gradient from top to bottom. We start out with the oranges and pinks here, with the blues up here. There are little traces of minor clouds, in through there, down in here, all making the sky very dynamic. So I not only review the images on the back of my camera to check for things like star trails and, am I taking too long of a shot, but I also check it for the amount of contrast levels that I'm getting with the night sky or the morning sky or whatever. So. One more piece of equipment to be added to our list. It's a tracking mount. So we all know that the Earth rotates, and if we go outside look up at the night sky for a long time, we can see the stars that appear to move, I guess, this way across the night sky. So in order to be able to take these longer shots, get a longer exposure than these 20 or 30-second shots, we need to counteract the effects of the rotation of the Earth. And we do that by adding a tracking mount. So here are two basic examples of tracking mount. This is Orion's tabletop mount, running about maybe, I think $100, and it basically you set a camera up there, align the thing with the night sky, and it will counteract the effects of the rotation of the Earth. This is a little bit more sturdy of a setup. It can be used for either cameras or telescopes on there. My particular setup, I use this fun little device. It is called the AstroTrack. And basically, I can take this out and maybe. Okay, well, it's a little fussy right now, but as far as coming off, I haven't had this off in a while. Basically, this will counteract the rotation of the Earth. These two arms will separate, and as these two arms separate, we'll rotate the top head here. And once I get it in alignment, by taking this polar scope, sticking it in here, and centering this mini scope here on Polaris, I can take up to 2 hours, a 2-hour exposure, and still have pinpoint stars in my image. So by doing this, it allows me to go a lot deeper into the night sky. I can see fainter things. I can bring out more detail, get more contrast.
Is that motorized, either electrically or mechanically?
Yes, it is motorized. There's a small motor in this part right here, and a power plug comes out of here. This particular model can be powered by any type of battery, or it has a capability of being powered by C-cell batteries. So I typically use a portable car battery to power it. That way I don't have to worry about buying batteries all the time. Yeah, very, very simple, easy to use device, and because it is very lightweight, making this ideal for a camping or a hiking situation, because the tripod weighs almost nothing, the arm is less than a pound in weight, so you can easily transport this, especially in comparison to something like this setup, which is about a 20 to 25 pound piece of equipment. So, this is called the AstroTrack. It's made by a company in Britain, AstroTrack Incorporated. So what can we do with this? This is an image taken of the coat hanger cluster. It's an asterism, but you can see the shape of these bright stars. So there's the base, and there's the coat hanger part. But what's really cool about this image is we not only get this popular asterism, but we get a very rare event in here. We can see a comet passing by the area. This is Comet Girard. It was visible, I don't think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago? It could have been last year. Yeah. Anyway, it was passing through this area, and this particular image is a single 5-minute shot with a 200mm camera lens that was put on that mount. So, this is one of my favorite shots here. So last winter in Silverthorne, Colorado, this company built ice castles in the center of town. They man-made, they piped, did PVC pipes to construct these humongous ice castles. And I went there one night, and there was one particularly large structure that you could walk into. And there was a few holes popping out of the top as you walked around. through one of these holes, I had my iPad with me, so I knew the position of all the objects in the night sky through a bunch of popular apps such as Sky Safari that you can get for iPhone, iPad, whatever. And I knew that by knowing where this hole was going to be looking, that the Andromeda Galaxy was going to pass through that hole. So I had about a 5-minute window to use that mount in the lowest configuration, very portable, to get the structure of the ice castle, which the builders of this also made it a night exhibit, so they put colored LCD lights embedded into the ice castles, which provides this deep blue effect. But I was able to shoot the ice castle along with M31, the Andromeda Galaxy. And because I couldn't stop myself with one ice castle, this is another good timing shot here. We have the planet of Venus with a very small cloud passing over the area, which, to me makes this whole thing look like an ice candle. In reality, this structure here is about 11 foot tall. Another great thing about nightscape photography is it not only deals with the real big, but you can use it with the real small as well. So we have the planet Jupiter centered in here, and these formations right here, this particular ice castle or ice rod, well, whatever you want to call this type of structure, is only about 3 inches tall. So basically with this shot, I achieved a focus on the ice castles, took shots for the ice castles, and then refocused on the planet and the stars in the background, shot it within, less than a second afterwards, and was able to create this. Another fun example. We can see the constellation of Orion in the background. Again, another ice castle shot. But now we get to some fun and interesting shots. We get to mosaics. We get to combinations. We get multiple exposures of shots. And this is where the power of nightscape photography can really start to be seen. Shots like this. So this is an 8-panel shot of one of the ice castles. And because I was able to do it in a mosaic form, I was able to image the entire ice castle first, and then go back with my tracking mount and take images of the night sky, allowing me a lot more detail, a lot more stars to be brought out. You can sort of even see going along here a increased band of stars, which is the winter Milky Way. We also get auroras, very rare in this part of the country, but after an intense geomagnetic storm, after the sun shoots off a huge solar flare, coronal mass ejection, directed in the path of Earth, all of those charged particles interact with Earth's atmosphere and can produce the northern lights, or auroras. This particular shot was taken from the Pawnee grasslands, about 30 miles outside, east of Fort Collins. So, and in addition to all this colorful auroras here, we also have a conjunction between the Moon, Venus, and Jupiter.
So, was that visible to the naked eye, or was it because of the sensitivity of the camera that it stands out so vividly?
Mostly the answer is the sensitivity of the camera. So the camera can see a lot more than the human eye could. However, with this particular storm, basically what I saw is I saw these clouds here, And then I saw a white halo emanating from this. So it was, I could see a little bit of this lower structure of the aurora as a bright white feature. With the human eye, I could not detect the color, this purple color. However, if you go further north where where you get the northern lights that are a lot brighter, a lot more intensity, and you see all these great pictures of these green auroras and red, those are visible with the naked eye very easily.
And the yellow lights must be city lights illuminating the bottom, is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately this is either Cheyenne, this is Cheyenne, yep. So. So, Rocky Mountain National Park, Rainbow Curve. So, this was with a tracking mount. Very simple shot that was mosaic together. So, for the night sky here, I took a series of 30-second images. I took a 30-second image here, I took a 30-second image here, one here, and so on. And then I went back, and while the moon was still up, still behind me, I took a minute-long shot here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And combining them all in together, we can see the full arc of the summer Milky Way and the nice and lovely light pollution from Denver. Another thing that we can detect, especially with cameras, is the zodiacal lights visible in typically in spring and fall. So this band of light right here, you can sort of see it as a diagonal going up, is those zodiacal lights. Sometimes if you're in a dark location, these can almost appear as sort of a false sunrise or false sunset. So you can see them right a few hours after the sun sets or a few hours before the sun rises.
What is it?
Basically, it's a band of dust and debris within our solar system that has light from the sun reflecting off of it. So the zodiacal lights are thought to have been caused by a patch of inter-solar system material around Jupiter.
Now is actually a pretty good time of year to see that, too.
Yeah.
Early enough in the morning.
Yeah. And so in the fall, it's before sunrise. So you pick a nice clear morning, go out about 2 hours before sunrise, maybe 3 hours before, and look to the east. It is? Yeah, east. You may be able to see this. Another shot of those zodiacal lights taken from here in Pawnee Buttes. So we see that along with the winter Milky Way. And in here, I was able to catch a nice iridium flare. So this particular shot was a mosaic of 4 images taken with a fisheye lens that were later stitched together.
How do you stitch those together? Software?
Yes, software. So basically the first thing I have to do is figure out the geometry of my fisheye lens, because all fisheye lenses distort differently. And once I know the mathematical geometry behind that, I'm able to correct for it. I'm able to reshape it into a rectangular image and then match them together like you would a normal panoramic.
So when you're out there and you see the Milky Way in the night sky, is that the same arc you would see with your naked eye, or is it distorted here because of the lenses?
For this particular image, it's a little bit distorted. However, not that much. I mean, if you consider the range of this image, I mean, from the right corner to the left, we're looking at about a 120-degree field of view. So if we were like that, we'd be looking about that much. That would be our field of view. So it is a little bit distorted here, but you do still see that arch, just in general. Death Valley, Tin Mountain. We see the entire Milky Way arching over the mountain on the side of taking an image from the side of the road. Moonlight illuminating the mountain, and basically there was, as soon as the moon set, I then started snapping shots to get the Milky Way arch.
Was that a single or was that a mosaic?
This was a mosaic. So the night sky here is comprised of 22 images taken with a 20mm camera lens. The foreground here is a mosaic of 13 images, also taken with a 20mm lens from the same spot, relatively the same time. So, like I said, I took the foreground 11 shots, waited about 5 minutes for the moon to fully set, and then I went back without moving my tripod and I captured the night sky.
How do you get into those mosaics, or positioning it, 5 degrees, 5 degrees, 5 degrees? What are you using to do that?
My
Just your eye?
Yeah, so.
You've done this before.
So, in order to make sure these things pan together, you want these images to overlap, and I'm a firm believer in the more overlap, the better. So, I'll take an image here, and I know the approximate field of view. So I'll then move it right here, and I know that I'll get somewhere between a 20 and 40% overlap, which is good because that's what the stitching software requires. And then I'll just keep doing this throughout the night, and after standing in the same position for 2 hours, taking a series of 50 1-minute exposures, I have this. Yes.
When you sleep.
I'll let you know when I figure that out. Oh, okay. So if we take this Milky Way here, we still have our tracking mount with the night sky. I'm going to zoom in on this. So remember, this particular image was taken with a 20mm camera lens, a bunch of shots stitched together. Now when I zoom in, I'm going to use a 50mm camera lens instead, taking 3-minute shots. And for this entire image that you see, this is a combination of 62 individual 3-minute shots. But with this, look at the amazing detail we can get in the Milky Way. We see all these dust lanes. We see all these reflection and emission nebulas. We have the Lagoon Nebula here, the Trifid there, the Cat's Paw in through there. We see the Rho Orpheus complex. We see all these amazing dust lanes within the Milky Way. But we can do better than this. Let's take a look at this region right here. So here we have what's commonly called the prancing pony. And you can see, if you tilt your head like this, you can see the back leg, another leg, a forward leg arching, the neck, and the mouth of a pony as it's stretching over the Rho Orpheus region. So this is a 50mm camera lens on a tracking mount for 3 minutes. But we can do better. Let's look at here. So, the entire Rho Orpheus complex with a 200mm camera lens sitting right on top of that mount. We see a nice globular cluster. We have the star Antares. We have all these dust lanes, all these dark nebulas. We have all these reflection nebulas, which in this region, some of them appear orange, some give us a pink. We have, a few blue reflection nebulas up there. We see a lot of detail. Yes?
Where do the colors come from? Is that the picture or do you add it?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Where do the colors come from? Is that what the camera sees or do you add it later?
The color. The color is what the camera sees.
Okay.
So with modern DSLR cameras, we have basically a color filter that sits right in front of the sensor, breaking the light into the red, green, and blue channels. So this is a highly processed image, but it is real. Then we can get cool atmospheric effects sometimes. So, of course, we have, you know, the Milky Way, which by now I ate a globe. Okay. but we have these green tendrils stretching out. And so, basically, the story behind this is I went out in the Pawnee grasslands. I wanted to capture a particular region of the Milky Way to, you know, for a particular project I was working on. But as soon as I pointed my camera, took a 30-second exposure, I go, what's this green stuff here? And, you know, so I thought it was a camera reflection or something, so I moved the camera, took another shot. There's brighter green here. Well, after getting stuck in the mud, waiting 2 hours, and then talking to a few experts, Les Crowley from OPOD, the optics pitcher of the day, he confirmed that this was something called banded air glow. So basically, the sun during the day excites molecules in our atmosphere, and sometimes this excitation lasts till the middle of the night. And when these oxygen molecules are in our outer atmosphere, basically lose the energy that was provided to it from the sun, they'll emit green light. Now, normally we don't see this. However, when there are effects in the atmosphere that bring some of these top layers down to us, we get banded air glow.
You were not able to see that with yourself, it only
This one I was not able to see with the naked eye, no. So, kind of wish I was, but. North American Nebula. So, 20 millimeter camera lens. We can sort of make out the shape of North America up here. We have, you know, Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, all the way up. So. Again, this is a very small region within the Milky Way that's located right here. You can actually see a little bit of a red tinging right where my laser pointer was. That is the North American Nebula, visible with a 200 millimeter camera lens on a tracking tripod. Then we can do fun stuff. You know, we have another example of Earthshine with the moon, the Venus, and, you know, a particular band of clouds that make it look like a sky monster. Sky serpent. You know, we got the eye there, you know, fins there, you know. Always do fun stuff with this. Another example of a simple shot, we have Venus, Jupiter, the moon with the Earthshine, the open cluster Pleiades. Now we move into something fun. HDR, high dynamic range. So our eyes are very sensitive to the range of light that we can go out, that we can see. So if you were to go out during the full moon and look at the full moon, you'd see that there are a few stars around it. You can't see that many stars because the moon is so bright, it's overpowering everything. Well, the same thing happens with a camera, only even more so. So if you were to take an exposure of the moon that properly exposes the moon, you would see 0 stars in that shot when you're talking about, you know, middle of the night. With HDR, basically what we do is we take a underexposed image, and we take an overexposed image, and we take a normally exposed image. And then we take the best parts out of all 3 images. So we take the dark features out, or we take the dark features out of the overexposed image. We take the light features out of the underexposed image, and we get the rest from the normal image. And we can expand the range of what we can see. So we can see the really bright and the really dim at the same time. During the Perseid meteor shower 2 years ago, this was the first shot that I took in Colorado. So a powerful lightning storm in the foreground, Jupiter hidden behind a series of clouds, and the Perseid meteor streaking across the night sky. So different exposure settings for in order to get the bolts of lightning, different exposures in order to properly illuminate the clouds but without them trailing, and another shot to get the meteor. Normally this type of shot isn't possible, but during a total lunar eclipse, the moon darkens enough that you can not only get the moon, which with its red tint coloring, but you can get a sea of stars in the background. So this particular shot is a combination of an 8-second image for the stars and a half-second image for the moon. a wider field of the same event a few moments later. We have the eclipse moon in the background, and then we have the constellation of Orion with a nice blue sky. So in order to get all this part here, this was a 2-minute image. A 2-minute image here, 2-minute image here, 2-minute image here, 2-minute image here, and then I did an HDR effect with the eclipse moon. A lunar corona. So again, when there are a thin layer of clouds in the upper atmosphere, we can sometimes see a concentric rings of color around the moon, known as a lunar corona. So this was one of the brightest and most powerful lunar coronas I've been able to see. And this is easily visible with the naked eye, but you can see colors of blue and white going out to orange and purples and greens and blues, and all like this. This was a combination of a 30-second shot, a 15-second shot, a 10-second shot, a 2-second shot, a 1-second shot, a 1/6 second shot, a 1/15 second shot, a 1/30 second shot, and a 1/200th of a second shot.
You are a very patient person.
Another example of a lunar corona. Only this time we have a treat. Not only can the moon produce these bright coronas, but any bright object in the night sky can produce them, but it has to be a really, really bright object. We have the planet Venus here, which you can start to see a faint corona around Venus. This is a conjunction. So the Venus and the moon appear close to each other in the night sky, and they both have a corona. But we can get weird effects with coronas as well. This effect was actually first recognized only about in 2003, I'm wanting to say. Instead of circular coronas like we get here around Venus and potentially some other, and around some of the other brighter planets, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, we can get an oval corona. Then we can do really cool stuff. So this is Mesa Arch within Canyonlands National Park. Very Mars-esque scene. And what you see here is the planet Venus before sunrise. So,
What's giving you the star effect?
I used a filter on, so basically I cut out a lid from like a butter Tupperware bowl, a circular, and strung wire over that, and placed the wire in front of my camera lens.
Yep.
As this light hit that wire, it diffracted into these spikes. Arches National Park with a well-timed iridium flare against the constellation of Virgo. Again, with a full moon out, illuminating the structure of balanced rock. Now this one is really cool. A few years ago, or maybe not a few years ago, maybe a year ago, when the Space Shuttle Discovery flew its last mission up to the International Space Station, we were lucky enough to have the ISS and the Space Shuttle fly over from the city of Fort Collins as about an hour after the space shuttle undocked from the International Space Station. And this created those arcs. We have bottom arc is caused from the sun reflecting off of the Space Shuttle Discovery. The top one is off of the International Space Station. And we can do cool stuff with the moon. Yeah, moon and clouds with a very bright star. We also do really, really faint stuff. This was a fairly rare planetary conjunction. We were able to see 5 celestial bodies in the same field of view in the early morning hours. If you look really closely here, we have Venus right there. We have a very thin crescent moon. I'm sorry, we have Mercury there, a very thin crescent moon. Venus. Right here is Mars. And then we was taken, but the foreground was basically taken in a lake somewhere east of Fort Collins, and I sat there for about an hour and a half dropping stones into this pond trying to get one shot. that also captured the changing light values of the planets in the background. Another shot over the city of Fort Collins. Venus, Jupiter, and the Moon with the Pleiades. Everyone remember the supermoon this year? It was really hyped up. Well, up where I am in Fort Collins, we had a very powerful lightning storm that night. Fortunately, there was a period of about 6 minutes where you could see the moon right at the horizon before it went into this huge cloud bank. So this is an HDR stitch of 12 different shots going up and down like that. One set of exposures for this town, one set of exposures for the cloud and lightning, one set of exposure for the moon. Yes?
What's your exposure time on the flashes coming down? Does it matter at all? Or just aim and wait?
For the lightning, it does matter. For this particular shot, I was fortunate it was still in the daytime, or the sun had set about 30 minutes prior to this, so the sky was still fairly bright. So what I was able to do in order to capture the lightning was basically I took a series of 3-second exposures, and I sat there and with my camera pointed basically right there, and I took a shot, and I took a shot, and I took a shot, and 200 shots later I moved over here, and I took a shot, and I took a shot, and another 200 seconds. And about an hour later, I collected all the data for this one image. I also do effects with the sun, and I do not encourage any of you to try this until you know exactly what you're doing. Shooting the sun without proper filters is not a good idea. That said, why not do it? So there's a very thick layer of clouds blocking the sun that day, and the clouds were thick enough that I knew that it would potentially be safe for my camera to do it. And with it, I was able to get a sunspot on the sun. Another day, another sunspot right about here, which with this projector, I don't think it shows too much, but right there. During a partial lunar eclipse, the moon was hidden behind a thin layer of cloud, producing a very bright lunar corona, as we've seen before. This is a zoomed-in image with that setup and a 400mm camera lens, seeing detail on the moon, seeing the partial eclipse there. We can start to see some of the color tinging of the corona on the outside. We zoom out on that. We get the partial lunar eclipse, the full corona, and by the time this was occurring, it was right before the sun came up, so there was enough light to illuminate the mountain in the foreground. Bandelier National Monument in New Mexico, full moon out that night. I hiked about 1.5 miles into the park, climbed up on a 150-foot cliff to this cave dwellings, and shot from inside the cave dwellings. The moon illuminated all of this region, all the mountain in the foreground, and still got enough detail for stars in the background. City of Fort Collins at night. So a very, very long HDR exposure. This is a combination of 52 HDR images, so a total of 52 times 3 exposures went into this one shot, showing all the massive amounts of light pollution from, this is the west side of the city. Then we go into something that I've recently been starting to work with called VHDR, Variable High Dynamic Range. Basically putting a high dynamic range, taking different high dynamic range images and putting them together. So maybe doing a HDR on the sky, HDR on the landscape, and then combining them. So, very basically a quarter moon, very bright in the night sky, still able to bring out the open clustered Pleiades along with all the stars in the background. The planet Venus after sunset over at snowy Fort Collins. Bear Lake or Glacier Lake in Rocky Mountain National Park. The recent Perseid meteor shower taken from the top of Trail Ridge Road in Rocky Mountain. So we have the moon coming up. We can make out, Taurus, Bull, Pleiades, and all of these meteors streaking down from the shower, whose radiant is about right up and there. A vertical panoramic of the Milky Way. So you can see the road down here. I started imaging like this. Took the Milky Way straight up, and once we got back around to going down here, caught the other side of the road. In order to shoot some of the shots at Zenith, yes. Cold Canyon in Zion National Park. Piracy Point in Bryce Canyon National Park got the Milky Way with a powerful lightning storm and a nice iridium flare. A very, very well-timed shot in Rocky Mountain National Park. I held a workshop up there for nightscape imaging this past summer, and one of the last places we went to was Glacier Lake, and as we were packing things up and ready to head home, we saw an elk standing in the middle of the lake, and he stood there perfectly for 45 minutes, allowing us to capture him with a moon backlighting. We even see a little bit of a lunar corona I put in there. The full moon, the month before the supermoon, rising over the city of Fort Collins. A lunar eclipse taken two Christmases ago. I think it's 2 Christmases ago, maybe 1 Christmas ago. Taken from a very rocky and sparking place north of Fort Collins. Same event. Very, very nice placement. So we have the hot air balloon moon up here. And can you see the lunar eclipse in this image? We have a very, very faint, this was after the sun had risen in the other direction. You can see a very thin sliver of it right there. Another fun shot, moonlighting for the foreground. A little bit of moonlighting, but not a lot for the Milky Way. Looking at Estes Park in Rocky Mountain, so you can see the city down there. Very colorful clouds streaming, moonlighting in the background. You can even see the shadow on some of these trees. And then one final image for this that combines pretty much everything. We have a lunar corona, we have a lunar halo, we have Milky Way, we have a little bit of light pollution, we have VHDR image, one set of high dynamic range images for the foreground, another set of high dynamic ranges for the night sky.
How many photos was that? How many?
This was a combination of 96 HDR shots. So 96 times 3. And basically what I did was I shot the lunar halo, shot the moon right before it set. I also, at the same time, I then went and shot the foreground with an HDR. And then about 15 to 20 minutes later, this moon set, and I was able to get the detail in the night sky. Yes?
So with regular stitching photography, it's pretty minimal data. That's like crazy amount of data. I can't even.
Yeah.
What is that?
it just takes a very long time. If you have enough memory in your computer, what I use to process, my computer has 16 gigs of RAM, and with this I'm able to at least load the images. That said, in order just to do the stitching, no processing on this takes about 36 hours for it to chug out.
Oh my God.
So.
Is that why it's taking a while for some of these pictures to load? They're loading in sections because some aren't dated?
Yeah, unfortunately. My belief for imaging is think big. So a lot of these images, even the JPEG size is 50, 60, 70 megs. So the raw files that are processed are of the order of 4 to 10 gigs per image. And then just one more fast section, challenges, filters, and telescopes. So a little bit of things that I can do with more than that setup. I'll go through this pretty quickly, but a VHDR.
Robert, there's nothing to see in the sky, so be totally cloudy.
Okay, good. Then you can see the sky here. This was a very, very patient shot, and I mean that for not only me. So what I did here was I took and I captured the background with a tracking mount and a 20 millimeter camera lens. Then with the moon partially still up, I captured the foreground, I captured the mountains, I captured the waterfall, I captured all this detail. Then, after the moon had went down, I took my spotlights, my flashlights, all the lights that I could drag up the side of the mountain, along with one of my office mates who really didn't know what she was getting into. and she sat in the middle of the waterfall. And for about an hour and a half, she sat there in different poses and tried different things, and we took a series of 6 to 8 second shots. And after taking about 300 shots of her sitting on that rock, we got one that worked. That said, that water was, freezing water, coming off of the snow, and, that was painful for her. What?
How much did she hate you?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. She wouldn't talk to me until after I showed her this image, and then she was okay with it. So, strangely enough, she went out and did it again. So, same person here, only this time we took a teddy bear out with us to the top of Rocky Mountain National Park. And I was going for a bright star in the foreground, or bright planet in the night sky with a starry background. I got incredibly lucky here though. As I was taking one of my exposures, I had a nice bolide, a very, very bright meteor across the path of my camera when I was exposing. So completely unplanned, untimed, really good luck. Same night that I took that, this was the shot that I originally went up on top of Trailer Ridge Road for. This was taken above the tree level, taken with a telescope. The telescope provides the large moon. I was able to do a VHDR in order to get the stars along with the moon, as well as some color in the moon. But because I was above the tree line and I knew this was going to happen, I brought trees with me. And we spent 3 hours dragging trees up the side of the mountain in order to position this particular shot. And now the field of view on this is a little bit misleading because this is the tallest tree. It stood about that high. But still, that was a half-a-mile trek from the parking lot. And with the right positioning of the telescope, the right field of view there, this shot was possible.
That's a pretty good level.
Crazy level, yes.
Robert, have you ever thought about using cardboard cutout?
But if I did, I couldn't get another fun shot with people. This was Lady of the Lake shot. We have Excalibur there. This is Bear Lake and Rocky Mountain. Another starburst filter. And unfortunately, I guess, this was only in October, so the lake was above freezing level. Still, she stood out there for a total of 2.5 hours while we took pictures that were 8 and 10 seconds long each.
Same girl?
Different. I don't think I could get away with that one in twice. But shooting people in nightscape images is incredibly difficult. And the reason she was out there for 2 hours is we were taking shots of basically just her and the surrounding region for that entire time, trying to get one shot that worked. This is why it doesn't. People are very hard. In one shot we had her head moving a little bit. In one shot, her dress caught the moonlight at just the right angle, so it overexposed that one part here. In another shot, there's a small gust of wind. And this, when you're shooting people, this is very difficult because you're trying to do a 6, an 8, a 10-second shot, and they have to stand perfectly still, not breathe, not move, not think, not do anything, not shiver for the entire time. And even the slightest amount of movement will cause something like this, where you can see that her head is very blurred.
But is she at least in waders underneath that dress?
Oh, in layers, yes.
What waders?
Oh, waders, no. No, she was barefoot and so it was not a comfortable night for her. During the Venus transit this past June, again, I do not recommend doing this shot for anyone out there unless you know exactly what you're doing. This was a completely unfiltered shot through a telescope. Never point the telescope at the sun. That said, here's an example of it. We have, the planet Venus there, and sun passing through a thin layer of clouds. Well, you see a lot of distortion in the sun caused from it being so low in our atmosphere.
What kind of filter do you have?
None.
None?
None. Yes. So, again, like I said, I do not recommend this type of photography for anyone unless you know exactly what you're doing. You can easily destroy your equipment by doing this. That said, I knew there was enough haze in the atmosphere that I wouldn't break my camera. I wouldn't, explode my telescope by this. Same event. This one with a filter. This was taken when the sun was much further up in the sky. This was a white light filter designed to allow us to see the photosphere of the sun, which gets us all these nice sunspots. And we see the transit of Venus as Venus passes in front of the sun in different stages. A few cool effects from that day. We have the diamond ring effect. So the light from the sun entered Venus's atmosphere and illuminated part of the atmosphere. You can see the ring caused by that light scattering around Venus's atmosphere. Another cool effect of that day, the teardrop effect. When you can see Venus's atmosphere being distorted, basically, and you see how it forms sort of a teardrop shape as it crosses and makes second contact with the sun. Then just a normal, nothing special about this. White light filter again, seeing the sunspots. The total solar eclipse, or the annular solar eclipse, taken from Natural Bridges National Monument this past June. So I believe that the next total eclipse won't be until 2017, and it'll strike basically through the heart of America and going from.
Not too far from here.
Yeah. So it can easily be seen in Kansas, Nebraska,
Wyoming,
Wyoming, yeah. So in a few years, this will be definitely something to check out. Then a zoomed in region of a sunspot. This particular image was taken by capturing 2,000 images of this one region and stacking them, processing them together, getting rid of the atmospheric distortion, getting rid of all the effects, or a lot of the negative effects of the camera to allow us to see detail within these sunspots. So we can see, filaments in through here, we can see sun granules all the way around. Another view of the sun. This is a hydrogen alpha view, looking at, I believe it's the chromosphere of the sun. Yeah. So in here we see detail within the sun, but we also see solar prominences. We see solar flares coming on the outside.
Is that time exposure?
This is not a time exposure. This is basically one shot to capture the detail on the sun, and then another shot to capture the prominences on the outside.
But that's through a telescope.
Yes, this is through a telescope with a very specialized hydrogen alpha solar filter. And then one of the last few images I wanted to conclude with, a very simple HDR mosaic shot of the Orion meteor shower. And the reason I wanted to show this last is tomorrow night the Orion meteor shower will peak. So if we see the constellation of Orion here, we see Orion's belt, Orion's sword, the radiant of the meteor shower, where all the meteors will seem to stretch out from, will be up and through this region right here. And we can see meteors streaking from that location. If you want an annotated version of it. Constellation of Orion, towards the bull, Gemini. Yeah, for more information, I do have an ebook available for imaging the night sky, Intro to Astrophotography on a Budget. That's available on my website, so a little shameless self-promotion there. And outside of that, if there are any questions,
Thank you very much.
This is taken from Bobcat Ridge near Fort Collins. This is a old log cabin that they have preserved in the area. So it's about 1.5 miles into the park. Yes?
For your software that you're using, are you using like Photoshop or GIMP, or are you using a little bit more robust?
No, my main processing is in Photoshop. I use a package called Topaz. It provides a plug-in for Photoshop that gives me some more actions. But I also use a program called PT GUI, which helps me stitch the really difficult things together. And Photomatrix Pro, which helps me to do have a little bit more control on the HDR side of things.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
I'm not sure what there is all to see outside. I mean, the moon is too low, I think, for a telescope. Straight up, it doesn't look like there's anything. It's all clouds. So,
Okay.
thank you for coming.